Welcome everyone back to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing really well. If you're new around here, do me a favour, hit that like button, hit that subscribe, turn that notification bell on. It really does help the channel out, and thank you so much for the support. I've virtually met quite a few new faces during this draft period. So, welcome to you. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. It does honestly mean the world to me. I know I say that every video and it becomes monotonous, but I do mean it from the bottom of my pommy heart. Welcome to another show. What we're going to do today is we're going to take an old look at the fixture list. And obviously this is the hugest debate, isn't it, ever? Because every year somebody's reigned the draft premieres, the trade premieres, and genuinely speaking, the fixture premieres as well. Someone does the whole thing, goes full Mick Malthouse on it and goes, can't see us losing another game. And I think it's such an objective viewpoint because I think there's so many ways that you can analyse this. So what I like to think about is that I remember last year, Carlton got their fixture list. They saw Hawthorn. They were like, oh, Hawthorn are in a rebuild. That's 4 points. Then Hawthorn have an absolutely sensational year. You know what it's going to be like. People are going to be looking at Collingwood this year, and you can already see the media narrative. Oh, too slow, being found out. There's 8 points if we play them twice. You know a team's going to rise. North Melbourne, everyone's got them bottom two, but they could quite easily hit their straps, draft really well, pick 2, becomes an absolute superstar, and before you know it, what he's penciled in as 4 points is a loss. So I thought what we'll do is we'll take the 3 mediums, then we'll create a consensus. So the first one is the AFL ratings that the Champs Data analyse it. They do one. Then we'll look at last year, which I think is what everyone does. I think everyone looks at last year's ladder and then analyses like that. And then what I'm going to do is take a consensus of the bookies, right? And the reason I say that is the bookies are right a large amount of time. The reason being they're in it not to lose money. So genuinely the shorter odds are correct. So we'll use their virtual ladder across the 3 major bookie networks. And then what we'll do is we'll create a consensus of them all to see if we can objectively look at it. Because firstly, when I look at it with just my eye, I go, Jesus, Carlton have got a really easy route, which is the most dangerous place to be as a Carlton fan. Like, I am looking and going, okay, cool, we made finals and we have got a fixture list that I would imagine we would have had if we were second bottom. Do you know what I mean? So I'm looking at that. I look at North's mind's eye and I'm like, oh, that's a little bit hard. Do you know what I mean? For North where they are. I look at Hawthorn and I think they've really been done in this one as well. I think Collingwood to an extent as well. I've got to say, the only one that I think looks fairly easy is Richmond's, which I would expect them to be, but then it's one of them, isn't it? It's one of them where it's all subjective because we could have this conversation in 8 weeks and Gold Coast at 18th and everyone's taking 4 points and North Melbourne have come out of the block strong and everyone's struggling against them. So it's a really interesting one. So I thought, let's get into it and try and bash it out together. And in the comments, please tell me if you think it is, because no one knows how the AFL do this. Now, I do think, and I want to caveat this, it's really hard to get this fair if you don't have 34 games. So, and also where games are played, like St Kilda have got a home game at the G, Carlton are playing a side who has home games at Marvel at the G. It's all higgledy-piggledy, but let's try and have a conversation. So, if you do it on the AFL ratings and how they rank the fixture list, you've got the easiest being Richmond, followed by Melbourne, followed by Carlton, followed by Adelaide, so on and so forth. I'm sure everyone at home can read and write. And you look at this, and this is where I always find it like kind of flabbergasting that Melbourne and Carlton have an easier fixture than North Melbourne and, say, West Coast Eagles. That makes no sense because even if you hate Carlton and you don't rate Melbourne, you would say that they're going to be 12 to 6, wouldn't you? You'd say that if you broke it down into the 6 categories, 1 to 6, 7 to 12, 13 to 18, you'd say they're in the middle portion at worst, I would say, and maybe at best for Melbourne. I don't know what you think. Gold Coast, again, are one of them anomalies as well. Like, why are they in, like, having an easier fixture than the Eagles, who are going through a massive rebuild. And then when you get to like North Melbourne at the 11th easiest, you kind of like, it don't make sense because Brisbane, they've got Spawn, they should have it hard. Sydney at 9, like, you would have expected Brisbane to be where Hawthorn are, Hawthorn to be where Essendon are, and then Essendon to be where Sydney are. But it is what it is. But the AFL ratings, as you can see, it's quite an interesting facet to do it because this is pure fiction. This is Champs data. They're analysing it through some medium that you have no idea how it is, done on some kind of protected rating on the players and then calculated by how many times a comet goes past Mars on your average Wednesday afternoon. But that is how it looks for them. So I think that's fairly straightforward. We get our head around it. The bookies odds are quite interesting. So the bookies obviously have Brisbane favourites to retain it. And it's really interesting here that Richmond again have got the easiest draw, as we'd expect. GWS, Carlton and Geelong. And when you actually look at the Brisbane results, you look at the bookies' results, it kind of mirrors with logic in the terms of you understand it. You'll see here Collingwood suddenly have another hard draw, and it's really funny that Collingwood are really ranked really lowly by the bookies on a consensus. But again, this one, it's kind of there. I suppose it probably feels a little bit harsher on the weaker teams, but when you look at the other 9, 10 to 18, you'd say apart from the anomalies there of North Melbourne and West Coast, if you replace that with Melbourne, with Geelong and Carlton, and GWS maybe with that, and you shifted them that 2, 3, 4, because again, it's really weird how easy Carlton's got a draw, because I think you look at last year, and if I was doing the fixtures, and I'm a Carlton fan, so I think I'm in a good position to say this, in the realms of fairness, you would say if Carlton had their players available, the fact they finished 8th makes me say they're quite a good team. And the fact that they're in a great age bracket would say that they're going to get infinitely better. But then when you look at West Coast on the other end, to use that same argument, you'd say, well, they're cooked, for a want of a better word. You look at North and you'd be like, they showed some things towards the end when teams were starting to prepare for finals, but this shouldn't be easy. Brisbane should always be. Richmond and Brisbane, for me, are the easiest to fixture because they should be the polar opposites. When you're playing teams twice, Brisbane are playing the finals twice. Richmond are playing the bottom 6 twice. Should be quite easy to facilitate that. And again, I find Collingwood a really interesting place, to put them in, because I still think former premiers 2 seasons ago, the list is still there. Do you know what I mean? The results last year were okay as well. They had a minor blip, but I would still expect with who they've recruited, suddenly they get a little bit better. But are they really deserving on this model of the third hardest list? I don't think so. And it does feel weird that GWS have got such an easy route when you do it with that metric. It has to be said it's bookie odds, but I always think it's a really good place to start with. And then if you look at the ladder, and I think this one is probably the one that we all judge it on, don't we? We all look backwards instead of looking forwards. And they've nailed this. Richmond have got the hardest draw. Fremantle, for some reason, based on last year's ladder, have got the hardest draw. And Sydney, I think, have been looked after in every consensus so far that we're up to. Collingwood in a position that you expect. So you can kind of see the logic here. But let's just say the AFL do it based on past. How are Fremantle 18th? The 18th easiest, the hardest. Brisbane should be a lock bog standard on there as a measure. Essendon, it's hilarious they have the third hardest draw. But again, how are Melbourne and Carlton below West Coast and North on them things? And GWS, for me, and I mean this in a nice possible way, I feel like GWS are like the AFL's pet, and no matter what they do, they always get an easy draw. Because every time I look at their draw, even when they were in the formation, always seems to be on the side of stupidity easy. even after they won the finals, it feels like it was easy. And again, Geelong are in that wonderful position because I always think their one needs to be boosted a little bit because GMHBA is just so alien to everyone. Like, they're one of the few clubs, I think, that have got a traditional home ground advantage. The fact not one team ever sees it apart from Geelong. So it's a real fascinating, this one. A few that, you definitely change. I wouldn't want to see St Kilda on the far end of the screen, 10 to 18, in my opinion. So let's have a look at how this looks at a consensus. That's always pretty good, I think. And you'll see here that across all the measurements you can do, the hardest draw is Port Adelaide, which is a real big surprise, I think. But it is. And you look at Port Adelaide's, the bookies have them as the hardest. It's the 15th easiest from last year. It's the second hardest according to the AFL CD rankings. Rounding out to be the hardest draw. Brisbane next. Hawthorn, you can see they're really bullish. Collingwood, that anomaly. Essendon are in there. Fremantle, I think, is about where they should be, in my opinion. St Kilda, you could maybe make an argument. How Sydney have got that far down. Geelong, it's disgusting. Then you see Carlton having a Richmond-type draw and Melbourne. Oof. I mean, I don't know if this is a favour for the AFL. The AFL are doing a favour in the terms of, to Melbourne, please don't dob us in for putting a bit of, allowing you to get away with putting Petrarca back out there. Interesting. It really is interesting. There's no exact science. I mean, obviously there's no exact science until the AFL. It would be great if the AFL said, right, if you're 17th, you play 17th. If you're 18th, let's say you're 17th, you play 18, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12 twice. It would be great if there was an exact science. Let me know how you think the fixture list is. I will concede as a Carlton fan, our draw on paper looks easy. It is worth as a caveat, though, you can only win the games that are in front of you, and you've got to win them games. And we've seen so many shocks. And if last year is anything to go by and everyone's got better, it should be even tighter this year than it was last year. So I don't think there is any traditional easy fixtures in the AFL at all. But let me know in the comments. Let's have a discussion about it. How would you fix the fixture inaccuracies? Would you like a real clear measurement from there? And would you be willing to let go some of the traditional rival games if that did incur? Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, we'll have a great discussion. Make sure you check out the mock draft. That was a really good, real hard work and a lot of effort went into that. Make sure you come and see us tomorrow. Special guest, Dylan Alexander. Got Damo SC, we've got Let Dog, and we've got Brownie from the Navy Blue Corner. Come and chill out with us, have a beer, and we'll have a little bit of a chit-chat as we do a draft. Peace, love, and light. Pommy out.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella